Thank you for joining us for this episode of That Solo Life, the podcast about PR professionals, marketers, communications pros who work independently. My name's Michelle Kane of Voice Matters LLC, and I'm here with my fantastic co-host. I'm going to have that trademarked, Karen. My fantastic co-host, Karen Swim of Words for Hire and head honcho at Solo PR Pro. How are you doing, Karen?
I am well, Michelle. I am well. Thank you so much. I'm a little tired. My body is not quite sure what time zone it's on, but it's okay. It's all good. It's all good.
It is. Yes, you were a true road warrior this week. You were out at the PRSA International Conference, which, my little day trip up to North Jersey for the GM Digital Dealer Website Expo pales in comparison to what you've been through. So, in fact, that's going to be the focus of our show today are some key takeaways from this PRSA International Conference. Since Karen was there witnessing it all firsthand, and it's, from what I saw online, it looked like it's such a great gathering of professionals and just a nice, you always get that nice inspirational shot about what you do for a living, and you get excited about it again. Not that we aren't. Of course we are. But,
no, it's true. Yeah. So Icon was pretty amazing. And actually, like all conferences, at some point, I really did hit like a saturation point where, I felt like I can learn no more. I can't take it in. But thankfully, you can download all of the presentations on the app. But, I am going to share some of the things that I learned from Icon. But in the broader view, I realized all over again how important it is to have a personal and professional recharging. So the conference was in San Diego, Southern California, which Southern California is my home. Right. And so for me, every time I go home, I get energized in a whole new way. And I have to go home. I don't do it all the time, but, for me, going at least one time a year is needed because I start to feel run down. And so going back to the place that I still call home, it feels like I'm, plugging myself into a charger, literally, and I go from low battery mode to fully charged.
Oh, it's true, though. And, even the change of scene, but especially a place that feeds your, mind, body, soul is so key.
Yes.
Yeah, and definitely.
I could do a whole show on how I fed my body. I mean, the one thing that I love about California is, there are so many vegan options. And I mean, you could lose your mind with food delivery or just going out to eat, and so many nourishing, fresh, organic choices of every type of cuisine that's vegan imaginable under the sun. I mean, so I was a pretty happy camper. I ate really well, but from the professional side, we all need to find ways, and I hope that, on a day-to-day basis, our membership community, for those that are members, does this, and other people are parts of other membership communities. So you can get this refreshing. But I think for a big refresh, I'm a big, huge fan of trying to find at least one conference a year that you can go to. And it's not just the learning and the networking. It's something about being in this space, being surrounded by people who do what you do for a living that is a professional refreshing. You grab ideas, you're inspired, you feel celebrated. So as I watched, and so many of our solos, by the way, had such pivotal moments at Icon. One of our solo PR Pro members, Mary Barber, won, not 2 awards.
Yes.
And to see her on the big stage, just, and she got to make a speech at one of the awards. It was just
incredible.
Such a fulfilling moment for me because she's one of us. That's our tribe.
Right. We love
she's
Mary.
A solo.
That's right. Solos rock.
And so I'm like, look at that. So, our little crew of solos was probably the loudest in both rooms where she got the award. And just, it feels like her award is our award because solos are so often unrecognized. Mm-hmm. There's no award for us. We have all of these big awards and big opportunities. And certainly many of our members have been recognized at some of these awards, but there's not, like a company or a body, a big organizing body that says, this award is just for you. And it recognizes the work that you do. So it was just so amazing. And then another of our solos, Christy Aylett, she was the programming person for the association nonprofit section over the weekend. And she put together a program that was so impressive. The speakers were amazing. And I'm not just saying that because I spoke. Dan Farkas, another one of our solos, he also spoke and he spoke multiple times. So go Dan. He spoke at the nonprofit section. He spoke at Icon. He's amazing. He's such a great speaker. Yes. And I learned so much from him. But Christy did an amazing job and deserves an award for her hard work.
Wonderful.
And then a lot of our people spoke and it was just amazing. So, one of my key takeaways is definitely, take a look at your 2020 calendar. Now's a great time to do that. Right. And pick out a conference or maybe two, because sometimes you can attend something locally and you don't have the travel expense. And start to budget for it because you need that. You need to be with your people. You need to get that boost. Being around other great professionals somehow it inspires you to rise even higher. Mm. That's how I felt. I felt like it makes me want to be more of a professional. It makes me want to do more in my career and with my clients. Not to mention, just the great information and sort of spotting, like, what are people talking about? What are the challenges that they're having? For Icon, for me, there's quite, to be quite transparent, there's not like this big track for solos. Right. Unfortunately, it's why in the past, Solo PR Pro has done its own conference, and then we partnered with FPRA because they are like-minded, but there's not a lot of entrepreneurial stuff. But obviously there are lots of people, the majority of people that work for companies that might hire us. And so It's a great opportunity to network, but also it's a great view into the client side of the business and how our counterparts operate, what they know, what they don't know, what they're faced with. And so, I gained a lot of information about that I believe will be helpful to me as I begin to think about 2020 and how I structure business development.
Excellent. So what are the maybe one or two of the biggest things about that specific thing, the client side, looking into the new year now that we're in the fourth quarter of 19?
Would you say measurement continues it? And we've said this at Solo, measurement continues to be a very dominant thing. Yeah. So if you are a Solo PR Pro and you are still using AVEs or still only using, vanity metrics, you need to get over it. You need to learn. Solo PR Pro has resources for our members, but you need to learn how to tie what you do to bottom line results. It's super simple. Okay. As budgets tighten and become more efficient, as companies grow weary of agencies and the agency model, they're going to be looking for results-oriented people. Right. And so you have to learn how to speak your client's language, and you need to get better about metrics. You need to not be afraid of of clients saying, what are the KPIs? You need to walk the talk, and you need to tie it and be able to say, here's how what we do drives what's important to you.
Right.
You got to be able to make those translations.
Right. We're not just fluff and spin. We actually can affect your business and we can bring the conversions. The work of a PR professional is not.
Absolutely. It's becoming more business minded.
Right.
Yeah. And I promise you that this will set you apart. I promise you that it will.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny, even in our, visiting with the different web providers yesterday, the one that piqued my interest the most was, websites that convert. Yes. That's the only thing these guys want to do is convert. So show me exactly how that's going to happen. I don't care about all the other things, but that's cool. So what else?
Yeah. The other two big things, I think, creativity. Creativity still matters. Sometimes we forget that, ours is definitely a creative profession. And I know for me personally, sometimes I do feel like that creativity is stifled by clients who want more of the same. Sometimes you deliver things, you come up with creative ideas, creative campaigns, creative ways of accomplishing things, and they love it. And somehow they then erode it all back to the same old boring, bland stuff.
Right.
So sometimes we can forget like that we are creative, but creativity matters. More importantly, giving yourself space to be creative. Yeah. And that is not just dreaming up creative campaigns or creative copy, but creating new ways and new approaches. Beginning to think about the language that you use with clients, beginning to think about your methodologies and putting creative spins on that. I believe that all of us have things that could potentially be patented, that we've thought of, we've invented ways that we approach our work, and it's so ingrained in what we do that we forget that it's different, that it's a creative way of approaching things. So I think more importantly for me, I walked away thinking, okay, this year I made a lot of changes in my work schedule and not forcing myself into these parameters that were ingrained in me for years. And I really have allowed myself, hours in the week to do nothing but think and brainstorm.
So
I think we all have to get better at that. You have to allow yourself the time and space to think, to breathe, and to look at, what you're doing. That's where you see gaps. That's where you get to say, you know what? Wow, what if I tried this? Right. And don't be afraid to experiment with things. I have created hacks by saying, I wonder if I put this and this together and then use this to integrate it, how would that work? How would that look? What would that do? But if we're always doing, you don't ever have time to think about that kind of stuff. So I think that was a big takeaway for me, is that the market wants our creativity. They don't necessarily want us to look the way that we've looked for 200 years. They want us to do things differently and come up with new ways of thinking and seeing things. And so don't be afraid to do that.
And that's really where you can build more of a partnership with your clients too. Because I think that allows them to truly value, how you are really championing for them. It's like, look, I really want you to succeed. This is not just simply transactional, and I'm always thinking for you, and I want you to do well, not just because it helps me do well, and I think it's that, not to get overly emotional, but there certainly is some kind of comfort to a client to know, I'm going to have your back in a number of ways. And one of those ways is we're going to make you look so good in a genuine way, of course. But I think that's really important. Agreed. And it's certainly one of the challenges I have, and have just been, I think feeling more of a need for is just, that it's not downtime. It's just productive thinking time. And I think that's
Agreed.
so key to keep us sharp. And I wonder if it's not just, these past 10 years of the growth of social and just diving into that and playing in that playground has perhaps occupied a good chunk of our time. And now, as you say, that's definitely coming to a head of, okay, we know what this can do for us. Now we're trying to be a lot more specific about it. So now we can take a little bit of time to, regain some of that thoughtfulness and creative thinking. So
Absolutely. One of the presentations that I attended was presented by someone in the military. There were a lot of military presenters.
Oh, cool. And to the face, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. They played a huge role, and it was fantastic to listen to them. Yeah. And so this one presentation I attended, I believe her first name was Shauna and her last name may have been Combs. And I am so sorry if I'm remembering incorrectly, but
we'll Google her.
She presented a technique to reverse engineer your campaigns. So
Ooh.
Yeah, it was really, and it all tied back to data, but it was that theme of creativity plus data. And the way she created it was by being in an environment where her superior allowed her word, not mine, by the way, because I know people are so weird about, certain titles, but her word, military. Her superior cultivated this environment where you were allowed to take risk and allowed to fail.
Nice.
And so her and the students just created this process. And once it worked, they were allowed to try it again, and they reverse engineered. So they worked backwards into for example, looking at a hashtag and then looking at who engaged with it, who shared it, how did the audience react to it? And then using that information to build the campaign backwards, using the results to create the next wave of content. And They did this with live video. And then she shared how they use live video to do some creative things. And so, again, it was that whole theme of don't just stay to the tried and true, experiment. You're as solos, we don't need anyone's permission to fail. We can do that. And I think failure and risk should be something that we absolutely build into the DNA of our companies, because that's how you innovate. And you can't innovate if you're afraid that something is not going to work. You just kind of go, oops, that didn't work. Let's try again.
Right.
And from people that I listened to and spoke with that have built thriving solo practices, and some have gone on to build huge agencies, that was one of the common elements. They allowed themselves to take risks. They allowed themselves to fail. If it didn't work out, they didn't, go hide under the bed. They just went, okay.
Next.
What did I learn from that? Is there something, can I tweak that to make it work better next time? Was that, what was wrong about that? What was right about that?
Right.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. I think that ties back into the creativity too. And also, if you're not trying new things or experimenting, how are you really progressing not just the profession, but the project that you're working on, all sorts of things. You have to try things. Otherwise, what are we doing? We'd all,
yes.
Yeah.
And then I think the third big thing for me, and, granted, I'm trying to look in a broader sense, but it is very possible that I'm filtering this through the lens of where I am personally in my profession and in my life. But the other big thing that I noticed, and I think I noticed it because it resonates with me, is that there were so many inspirational messages. So I know we all look for the tactical, how do I use this better? How do I do that? Boom, 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 1, 2, 3. And certainly there were lots of sessions that addressed that. But in the broader view, there was a lot of inspiration. And my takeaway on that is that because of the times that we live in,
yes,
that people
absolutely.
are looking for ways to have their souls fed, quite honestly.
Yes.
And we're looking to reconnect with our humanity and be reminded that there's something bigger and that what we do matters. And so I felt like there was a lot of content that either addressed that head on directly or weaved it into the talks. Laura Ling, the award-winning journalist that was captured by North Korea, was one of the keynotes. And I must tell you, if you do not know the story, go buy her book. I did. Sitting and listening to her, there was thousands of people in the room, and her talk was like more than an hour. Dead silence the whole entire time. Not because people were bored. No one was on their phone. Normally in talks, you're leaning over to your neighbor and you're saying something like, oh my God, there goes so-and-so, or, oh my God, can you believe they said that? There was none of that. People were riveted, hanging on every single word. And she was quite inspirational. It was quite a tell. And even though I was familiar with the story, I can't tell you it was life-changing. Hearing the words come out of her own mouth. So if you are not, oh my God, read her book.
And it goes back to what was that? She was sharing her story. We are storytellers in this profession. And oftentimes the stories are, yes, of course, we hope they're compelling and they're important.
And I think, yes, Michelle, you're so smart. That is another great takeaway. Remember that you are a storyteller. Remember to infuse everything that you do with that element of tension, emotion, humanity. Because even in a press release, if you bring that to your work, it will come through. I promise you it will come through, and it makes a big difference. Yeah.
Yep.
So
definitely.
Yeah. It was, and I went to Bob Woodward's keynote, and what a funny man. Cool. He's 76, 78 years old, and he's still working. And he's like an old school gumshoe that, doesn't do everything by email, but he actually goes out and knocks on doors and gets the story. And that to me was like,
also inspiring.
And he said it, get your head out of Google. He uses Google to do his research. But so for me, it's like, as a PR professional, how often do we rely on digital tools instead of, I still do call downs. So I will pick up the phone and call people when I can find the number, but he will find you. And it made me think, how far are we willing to go? Are we willing to do the old school work? And he said, I come home sometimes and it's embarrassing to tell my wife how many doors got shut in my face and how many people are like, what the fork? Are you still doing this crap? Pardon the language, but he did, he used much saltier language than that. But yes, he is still doing it, and he's still doing it his way, and still successful, and still enjoying what he does.
That's why he's still doing it, and
that's why he's still doing it.
Yeah, that's why he's still excelling. I mean, that's tremendous. I think it's great that he's still out there. It's like, come on, you're Bob Woodward. It's okay. You can have a bad day.
I know, a legend. And you think, he could just stop, and he could just, sit in a chair and, and enjoy the sunshine, sip whatever he wants, and, be funny and engaging because he is. But nope, he's still working.
There's so many layers, I'm sure, of takeaways in all these keynotes as well. That's the fun part about it. And you're right. It's essential. I mean, these past couple of years, I've only been able to get to the Pennsylvania Conference for Women. But for me, that is also, the one day thing, for Shonda Rhimes to sit there and say that she gets imposter syndrome. Okay. Wow. Thank you. That was worth the price of admission. If you get imposter syndrome, I can handle my imposter syndrome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, but it is very important. Well, this was so much fun catching up with your key takeaways from PRSA Icon. And I'm glad you're back safe and sound. And and yeah, fired up and ready to go.
I'm fired up and ready to go. I'm ready to take all of this inspiration and put it to work. And I will say, for me, if you go with a open mindset, a mindset that's open to learning and being inspired, it almost doesn't matter which conference you go to. So, right. I'm kind of like that with movies too. If I go to an actual movie, it can be a terrible movie, but I always enjoy the experience. Right. So I never feel bad that I paid the ticket price. Although Will Smith Wild West came pretty close to making me regret my choices in life. Sorry, Will, but that was the one movie that you had to redeem yourself from. It's like
it's pretty bad. At the giant mechanical spiders in the trailer, I said, nope. Okay, next.
I saw it, and I promise you it was, and I love that whole movie going experience. And that was the one time I'm like, I really need to get my life back. Like, can I just have that? Can we reverse, go in time, and can you give me back those hours of my life and my money? Because this was the worst experience ever. But
that's a shame because the cast was great.
Yes, it was a horrible movie. But, I do, I approach conferences, and if I'm actually going to, leave my house and, oh, by the way, fly somewhere, then my mind is really open. Like, what can I learn? And you learn in between the spaces. You learn in those conversations with people that you meet. I became thankful all over again for not being in corporate America. I'm sorry, friends who are there, but oh my gosh, I'm so thankful to be able to create my own culture and environment and to be able to lead that.
Yes.
You people, hats off to you. The work that you do is so amazing. And sometimes the conditions in which you have to work are challenging. And I don't envy you. So hats off, corporate brethren, but I'm glad not to be one of you.
Well, that's true. In many respects, sometimes I think, what if? And then you think, I'm not sure. Thankful for the work that I have. Yes. Well, this was so much fun catching up. And I'm sure, did they have a hashtag for the event? Do you recall?
They did. It was PRSA ICON, no spaces. And so, check out the hashtag. And,
it's usually a great way to catch up on the snippets of what happened. Sometimes I'll even do that with conferences I attend because you can't be everywhere. So check out that hashtag, and thanks for sharing, Karen. Thanks for carrying the load of this podcast.
Thanks for allowing me to relive some of those moments.
No, it's great. I was so excited to hear all that happened and all of the great takeaways. So I thank you, and we thank you, our listeners, for joining us for another episode of That Solo Life. Make sure you subscribe. And you know what? If you like what you've been hearing, we would be so grateful if you would take a second and write a review. And that would help us share the good news of this podcast, That Solo Life. So until next time, thanks for listening.
Thanks.